Hail them.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
Hailing frequencies. Open.
I don't know why I keep giving alien street food a chance. It's always such a gamble.
Captain, we're being hailed.
On screen.
Hello, and welcome to another Hailing Frequencies Open podcast where we continue to trek through the past and future of Star Trek. As always, I'm your host, Mike Jones, and joining me in the virtual studio, he's I fucked a go-go dancer a time or two. It's Damien.
I knew this is what happens when Lanita and I write each other's intros. Is that what just happened?
That is exactly what just happened.
Fantastic. Well, yes, of course I have. I fucked all kinds of people.
Dear listener, that comment will make more sense soon. And speaking of Lanita, we have yet to see her in uniform. We prefer a certain formality on the bridge, and we'd appreciate it if she wore a standard uniform when she's on duty. It's Lanita.
Yeah. See, I don't follow the rules. Sure, Deck. I come to you from leave all the time. So let's be happy that I have clothes. I have clothing on at all. I want to be in some fuzzy jams, rubbing my feet under some covers. Hi, Mike Jones. Hi, Damazon.
I want any eagle-eared listeners to know that was lifted directly from Captain Jellicoe scolding Deanna Troi for wearing her variant uniform, which I can tell right away that our guest got it.
Oh yeah, totally.
We discovered tonight's guest on his YouTube show 1701, A Blerd Story. As soon as we heard his character agonizing over whether to include Trekkie in his Grindr profile, we knew we had to meet this creator. He is a graduate of the Cal State Long Beach University with a BA in Theater Arts. He has graced the stage, winning an NAACP Theater Award in 2024 for Best Male Lead. His TV credits include All American, For All Mankind, and he wrote and directed and produced 1701, A Blerd Story. Please welcome Matt Jennings.
Hi.
Welcome.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm so good. I'm just very, very happy to be here. This is, again, I said it already, but this is the highlight of my day. So I'm very happy to be here.
It is the highlight of my day too. Every time we record, every time we get to talk to a new, Trekkie, a new member of the tribe, I love it. It really does make our day. And since Damien is the first person who first discovered you, I'm going to turn it over to Damien. For the rest of the interview.
Oh my goodness. Well,
that sounds
very
final.
And you'll never
hear from him again.
And I'm logging off.
And Mike Jones tiptoes quietly backwards out of the room, never to be seen again.
Just
not
fades
the
to black.
case.
Fades to black.
No, Matt, we're so excited. We're so happy to have you here. And we definitely, it's funny because and now who can retrace their steps through the internet and how we find it. But I definitely saw you in that video struggling with that very question. It's like that is all I needed to watch to be like, oh, and I showed them. I was like, oh, we need to talk to him. But so my first question happened, so we watch your whole series. We want to know, like, and this will sort of guide everything. Can you characterize the difference between real Matt and fictional Matt?
Okay, I think that the only thing about fictional Matt is that fictional Matt is not as naive as real Matt is. A lot of the stuff that happens in the series, Matt's somewhat experiencing for the first time. There's certain things that I always say, like in character backstory, has been aware of, has been taught by his parents. Hey, be on the lookout for this, be on the lookout for this. But a lot of it, we're watching it happen to him for the first time. I also think just from a writing perspective and from an acting perspective, more so because I consider myself an actor first, they always say the most powerful thing to watch sometimes is the character experiencing or discovering it for the first time. And so I will say that for the sake of the story, a lot of these things are happening to Matt, or he's experiencing it for the first time, maybe intellectually somewhere kind of knowing
Sure.
that this was out there. Now real Matt, a lot of that stuff is coming from stuff that real Matt has experienced and is I wouldn't say jaded by, but has just been exposed to. So
now, can you give us like a little, just like a little crash course on your show, like what we immediately glean from it? It is fictional Matt's dating adventures as a blerd living in LA. And actually, rewind. Explain to us what a blerd is, because I'm sure my mom is listening and does not know.
Hi, Mom.
Yes.
Hello.
She is.
I mean, a blerd is, I mean, it's basically a black nerd. Marry the words together, blerd.
Yeah.
I can't, copyright that word. It's been around.
Forever.
It's been around. I just decided to put it in the web series and make it the title.
Yeah. But can you tell us a little bit about just sort of your general concept for the show? And
well, let's see. So it started off as a play. It started off as a solo show in 2012, where I just talked about certain very certain identifying moments in my life, key moments in my life that helped me to become the person that I was at that point. And I told it through Star Trek references. Like Star Trek was the backdrop of this solo show, and some of it would take place in Matt's head. So he would, for example, have a conversation with his cousin about coming out, and his cousin was like his guy, his counselor, his guidance. So I compared my cousin Margaret to Deanna Troi and Guinan. My friends, I guess the core three, the core four, I compared that friend group of Bones and Emerson that you see in the series.
Yeah.
I compared that to being like Kirk, Spock, and Bones on the Enterprise. And so after doing the solo show, I did it once in Long Beach for the first time, and then I took it to the New York Fringe Festival, and then I did it again in New York. And a couple of years later down the road, my boyfriend at the time said to me, "Have you thought about turning that into a web series?" And I said, "I don't know what would, how that would look." But a couple of months later, I finished a pilot, and I just took the concept from the stage show and transformed it into something that could be filmed. So all those Star Trek references that I use on stage to talk about things in my life, I made this alternate reality for Matt based off of Star Trek. So when Matt has to make a decision in his life, or when he's debating over something, in his mind, he's in the captain's chair on the Enterprise, and he's got his friend Emerson, who is Spock, in his brain, who's arguing the logic of the situation, and you've got his friend Bones, who he also just calls Bones in real life.
Yeah. That's great.
And he's got his friend Bones, who's the more emotional person that just goes from the visceral, the emotion, the gut. And then you've got Matt in the very middle that makes the decision in the captain's chair, and we'll cut back to reality, to Matt in real life, and he deals with the situation, or he processes it.
It's so great because it makes you see like what an amazing archetype the original series, like triad, the Trinity, really was. Because I feel like we all sort of have this in our lives where we have somebody who's like giving us like this sort of like emotional, most human response, and then we have someone, it's like the devil and angel on our shoulder, but it's like logic and emotion on either side, and
right.
it plays so well.
And you've got again, throughout the episodes, I tried to adapt certain Star Trek aliens themes to scenarios and things that Matt deals with in the series, to try to give certain things that Star Trek, that nerdy context, to make more sense. So Matt dealing with racism, is him realizing that certain people have been Borgified, or certain mentalities that people have are an effect of assimilation. And what is assimilate? It's colonialism, it's assimilation, it's gentrification, it's it's very Borg. You know, what do the Borg say? Your biological and technological distinctiveness will be added to our own. And what is it? One of my favorite lines from Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which was a really big inspiration for using the Borg as a theme or as an example of racism, was a line that Michael Eddington has in one of the Deep Space Nine episodes. I think it's from season 5. But he says to Cisco, you know, the Federation is worse than the Borg. You assimilate people and they don't even know it. And that always stayed with me. And it as a when I probably really started watching all of Deep Space Nine when I was a teenager after it had come out on DVD. But that line always stuck with me. And I was like, what does he mean? What does he mean? And then as I got older and started to see how I was affected by racism and how my mentality was affected by racism, I realized that's what Michael Eddington was talking about. People don't even realize it. And we're all affected in some way. So I say all that to say, yes, that is how the series started. And that's that's kind of the concept of the show is that.
Well, and it's interesting because, you know, so we obviously watched it, and it's really interesting to see the sort of progression of all these different ideas that you're kind of wrestling with this, because in the first episode, it is almost like you're struggling over whether or not to come out as a Trekkie.
Oh yeah.
Is that like, how real is that in your life?
There's still a hesitation. It is not as prevalent as it was when I was younger. When I was 7 years old, I think there was still an innocence to coming out as a Star Trek fan, because there wasn't really any shame attached to it from external sources, and it was also very much nurtured in my family. My mother is responsible for me getting exposed to Star Trek. My dad is also very much a part of that and very much nurtured me continuing to watch it and the importance of it. My mother is a Blerd. My dad is a Blerd. Science fiction was always in the house in some kind of way. So when I started to go to school and I started to make references and make jokes about Star Trek or Dune or kids didn't quite get it. And I was like, but this is the way it's always been. But for me growing up, that's the way it always was. Yeah. How could no one else not understand what I'm talking about? And then to be shamed on top of that, it added a layer of hesitation. And, unfortunately, when we are exposed to certain things when we're younger, depending on how damaging it is, it stays with us. So there's still a little bit of a stiffness that I get when I say I'm a Trekkie. There's still a little bit of an apologetic tone in the voice. I try, it's not as prevalent as it used to be, but it's just, what happens in your life, it does affect you. And so it's a constant thing that I battle here and there.
Well, and I feel like I don't want to speak for my cohorts, but I feel like we get, like, when people are like, oh, you have a podcast, what's your podcast about? And you're like, Star Trek. And then they're like, wait, what?
Oh, yeah.
It's just talk about the show?
Fun. Yeah, it's fun, and it's nerdy, and it's funny, and you should listen to it. So
yes.
Well, I mean, I can understand, like, you coming from this bubble of, like, nurturing of sci-fi and fantasy and being like, yes, let's delve into these other worlds. Let's see what the future could be like. Being Black in the world, like having your own little enclave of someone being like, yes, look at where we could go. We could be in the stars. And then to come to school and be like, no, nerd, weird, bad, boo. And then you sort of like, over time, it like shuts you down and breaks you down. You're like, I'm going to keep this to myself. But I will say that as an adult, you should tell, if anybody doesn't like the fact that you're a Trekkie, then that's not a friend you want to have, because listen, don't be a part of a club that doesn't want you as a member. And if you can't take the fact that I enjoy watching a Star Trek episode or two on a Saturday night with a glass of wine, well then I don't know if we can be friends.
And that is the truth.
Man.
Here's what I'm gonna say too. Here's what I'm gonna say too. Not to toot my own horn, but toot toot beep beep.
Toot. Yes.
Here's the thing. What I will say is, after being more out and being more open about my love of Trek, I have friends that are now Trekkies. My supervisor, who I spoke to about Star Trek earlier in the year, she was just curious about it. She's also a blerd herself, and she was curious about it. And I said, "Oh, there's Discovery, there's this, but a good in is Lower Decks. If you want to watch that, it's funny, but it also,
Okay.
has some references. It's a good gateway show." She's like, "Oh, okay, I'll check it out, whatever." And I was like, people say that, and then, they don't follow up.
Do it. Mm-hmm.
But sure enough, I go on her Instagram and I look at her Comic-Con pictures, and her and all of her friends are dressed up as Lower Decks characters.
Amazing.
And I said, wait a minute.
Look what
this
you
was
did.
March.
Look what you did.
Let's
Who
see.
did that?
And again, not to toot my own horn, but toot toot beep beep. There have been a couple of men that I have had heated relations with that now watch Star Trek on their own. So
look at you, shepherding people to Star Trek.
I'm just saying, look, it's Paramount, CBS, Skydance, just give me the check, send it to me. It's fine, I'll keep spreading this gospel. Also, too many people have my Paramount Plus login.
Are they messing up your algorithm?
Yes.
Putting things on there, suggesting things that you do not want to see.
Like, who is watching The Good Wife?
Right. It's like, it's funny. I can tell who's been watching what. If it's Titanic, it's probably my boyfriend. If it's RuPaul's Drag Race, it could be anybody. That one's just, it could be anyone.
Because hello, Drag Race, amazing. No, so what's interesting is that, like, one of our standard, I'll call it, like, standard questions, like, what's your Star Trek meet cute? But I love the fact that you just sort of brought that in without us having to, like, ask the question.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting to me how you said, you're 7, you're introduced to it. Were there other sci-fi fantasy things that your parents introduced you to? And are you like an only? Do you have siblings? Is this like a full-on family affair situation?
So let's see, any other sci-fi influences? So it would probably come from, it would again come from my dad and my mother. My dad has this thing where he calls it Dad's Film School, where he would just show me different genres of films as I was growing up. Sci-fi was obviously one of them. So there was Dune, Star Wars. It took me some time to get into, because I think I was 7 years old when I watched A New Hope, and I had my dad turn it off when Darth Vader started to get in the hallway, because they were shooting at Darth Vader, on the Rebel blockade runner, and I was like, it's so violent, turn it off. Like, I remember having that reaction, but then, like, I went back to watch it later on. But yeah, he showed me Blade Runner, and oh god, what else? God, I can't think of any other sci-fi stuff right now from my dad, but there's a whole bunch that I'm just blanking on right now. My mom had Farscape on. Oh, with my dad, it was also Battlestar Galactica. My mother also had,
which would have been the original Battlestar Galactica from the 70s.
It was, well, I mean, there was that one in the house too, but there was like the reboot as well. And then
he's a little younger than us, Damien.
He's not old like us, Dave's son. He's youth.
And then there was oh god, what was it? Then there was 80s Dune. 80s Dune was on TV a lot. 80s Dune was on TV a whole lot. I mean, Sting in like the whole, like that leather Speedo greased up child.
That's when you knew?
That's okay. So when I knew was with Hayden Christensen.
Oh,
when I saw Attack of the Clones, that's what happened. I saw that movie, and I saw just Anakin 10 years down the road, because he's not, Jake Lloyd anymore. And I, for whatever reason, wasn't expecting that time gap. And I saw him, and I was like, oh, Anakin grew up, he filled out, cool. All right. Like, I'm just admiring this character. This is just character admiration. And then after I saw that movie, I started drawing pictures. I started searching Hayden Christensen on the internet. And I was like, okay, this is something else is happening here.
This is the thing.
This is
I
a
love it.
thing.
I love it. I feel like he had his like teen beat moment, right? And his
Oh yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Just like Will Wheaton had his team beat moment, back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a thing that you allude to in that first episode, though, that part of your hesitance to come out as a Trekkie is that it seems white. Is that?
Yes.
Tell me about that.
That what you mean? I mean, it's an ongoing thing that, anytime that people of color like something that is outside of the stereotype of what we are supposed to be,
Yeah.
it is abnormal. Anytime that something has a certain type of intelligence and a black person tends to like it, it is abnormal. It is white. As if, to be white is to have an ownership over certain things, over certain,
sure.
Whatever. And so I remember in school being called the whitest black kid because of how I spoke, because of how I dressed, because I like Star Trek. And that's obviously, not to knock anyone that speaks a certain way, dresses a certain way, not to say that that person is not also intelligent. But it's the ongoing stereotype that if you like certain things, that that means that you're intelligent. And so I had to train myself to get out of that mindset too, that no, I'm not white because I like this, I'm me because I like this.
Right.
And I mean, I think that that's something that, it's something that I still fight. It's something that even in acting, I think when you're auditioning, and especially when you're trying to find representation, you're trying to find a type, because you still have to
Oh yeah,
fit in that
Oh,
box.
Right.
I remember thinking there's just no place for a black nerdy guy that likes Star Trek that's also queer. I mean, fast forward to, Dear White People, shout out to Justin Simeon, who said that's a lie. Like that, it was so nice to see that show and to see him tell that part of his story. But it's I think it's still an ongoing battle in Hollywood for sure. It's getting a little bit better, a little bit, but I still think for black men, it's still a weird thing for us to like certain things. So
it's one of those things where you're conditioned to, like, truly it is something that the moment that somebody can tell you that you're different because you're not a stereotypical ideal of what they believe a black person should be, like the monolith, like, it's interesting when you, at the end of your series, when you walk into the bathroom and you look at the pictures that you have up on the wall, it's like, yeah, like when I think back to the photos and all of the advertisements, all of the commercials, all of the things, like
yes,
my body type is not what was being portrayed. But I have my grandmother's tits and ass. Like,
yes,
they're period point, but like I could lose 40 pounds. These titties and this ass ain't going nowhere. Like, it just
yes,
is. And so it's like to try to look like something that I would never be. Like, I joke and say I was bulimic for 3 days. Like, the idea of, like, I was like, what am I doing? What are you doing?
This is a
Like,
lot of puking. Nobody likes to puke.
what is happening? I'm like, truly 72 hours. Like, this is for the birds. If it's gonna be what it's gonna be, it's gonna be. And it's hard to, like, decondition yourself from that for years and years.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying. Like, yeah, it's a daily work in progress. But
It is.
at the end of the day, you just have to stand 10 toes down and be like, I am enough. Guess what? I like Star Trek.
Yes.
I like sci-fi. Star Wars ain't my jam. Give me a little Harry Potter. Like
Yes.
role play, yes.
Right.
And that is, and no, I'm not articulate. It's just the way I speak. Like, what are we
It's
talking
just,
about? Like,
yes.
it's just the way it is.
And the thing is that I find interesting when I think about there's a moment in like the first season of Star Trek Picard where I think it's the second episode with Seven of Nine, and Picard, or Seven of Nine, says to Picard, after you were assimilated, did you ever fully get your humanity back? And so Picard has a long, uncomfortable pause where he looks at her and he says,
No
"No."
one's ever asked him that.
Yeah.
Right? No one ever asked him. And and maybe he never thought about it, but he just says no. And he says, "But every day I'm working on it."
Yeah.
And I think that's
because she's the only one who could ask that question.
yes.
She's the only one who could literally have that moment with him.
And I think that's what it is. I think when it comes to things like racism, when it comes to Eurocentric beauty standards that we're exposed to in the community, in the queer community especially, we've all been programmed, but every day, we're working on it, or we have to be working on it.
Well, and yet that's a whole other layer too, that in the queer community we have all of these sort of ideals telling us who we're supposed to be and who we're not supposed to be. And for all of the shit I post about Star Trek, I look at my For You page on Instagram and it's naked men in Speedos with muscles. Like
what is it, Jameson?
It's me. Me too.
It's me. Oh, really? No.
They're like, you will try to escape it, and they will not let you. They will not.
They will not let you.
They've decided that is what you like, and that's what you're going to look at. I don't know. They've decided that I need to see animals and food being made by people who are dressed in 17th century clothing, making their own butter and patting it. And I'm like,
I get those videos too.
For you, and things being excised from body parts, but that's.
But among gay men, there's all these forces telling you what you're supposed to be and what you're not supposed to be, and and honestly, I don't think it was until we started doing this that I really understood, like, that there's a lot of gay people who are into Star Trek, that it has a particular queer appeal to it. Yeah. And that you just have to start talking to the right people to know that we are all out there,
Yes. Yeah, we really are. I mean, and I'll say after going to a couple of conventions now, especially in Las Vegas, Star Trek is so queer. And the community is so queer. You are either somewhere on the rainbow, somewhere on the flag, you can find yourself, or you're an ally, like
a hard ally.
All right, this is a broad generic question that we have asked before, and every time we've asked it, we have, I swear to God, gotten different answers. So I'm going to ask you, like, tell me, what is it that is so queer about Star Trek?
I think for one, it's probably the fact that there's nothing off limits. Everything is so present. Any alien, any shade of alien, any scenario, there's an unapologeticness to Trek and to the storytelling that you've got to fully commit to for it to work. And I think to be queer, there's an unapologeticness that you have to have, or that you have to consistently work on to stay true to yourself. And I think that's that goes right along with Trek. I mean, obviously we have characters like Jadzia Dax. We've got the full-on representation of queer characters in Star Trek Discovery, which I think was incredibly queer. That was a queer
literally
show.
Every character was some kind of queer.
Every character.
Literally all of them.
Yeah.
Sprinkle it.
You make a case for literally any of them.
And that it wasn't sensationalized, and it was like everyday, regular. We're brushing our teeth together before we go to bed.
Yes.
Exactly, yeah.
And it just was and is what it is. I mean, and I know this example gets used all the time, but there's that episode of it's not Way of the Warrior. It's the one where Dax and Worf and Oh my god. Core. They're
Oh,
all looking
Oh,
for
I'm
the
on
Sword of
YouTube.
Kalis.
yes, the Sword of
oh,
Kalis.
thank you, Rachel.
And so Core is meeting Jadzia Dax for the
Mhm.
first time. And so Core says, "Oh, Kerr's on my old friend." And Jadzia is like, "Oh, it's Jadzia now." He's like, "Jadzia, my old friend."
Oh, that was
Yeah.
Blood Oath. That was Blood
Oh,
Oath.
that was Blood Oath.
Klingons all
It's
come back. Yes, yes.
And it's just, there's no long conversation. I mean,
So
not to
simple.
knock not to knock people wanting information and having that sharing of information, but it's just that simplicity of, oh, okay, either way, I'm just
Moving
happy
on.
to see you.
I'm happy to see you.
Yes. And it's beautiful. That simplicity is beautiful.
Well, and it's well, it's sort of conversely, in that same episode, the other two Klingons, she does have to convince them. She does have to,
Right,
that each of the other two
yes.
men have to have this learning experience to be like, this is still the same person that I knew, and this is still this woman has the heart of a warrior and can join us, and that so we get the whole spectrum of that experience in that episode, which I find
It's
cool.
fascinating. So awesome.
It's
So you
about
mentioned
being your authentic self. That's we're seeing that in Star Trek, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah.
the crux of everything. I was gonna say, like, so you mentioned going to conventions. What is like your best convention story? Like, what is your favorite thing that happened at a convention that you went to?
What's okay? Oh gosh. Oh gee, there's so many things. I mean, honestly now I don't even go to the panels as much as I just like talking to people and other fans. It's like a giant cookout. It's like it is so cool. I think I can think of a couple of things. This last time that I went, I got to meet the Sci-Fi Sisters for the first time.
Nice.
Oh my god, we love that. I mean, I'm a total fanboy.
I love
Love
them.
the Sci-Fi Sisters. That they've been like doing all this election stuff lately. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I got to meet them and that was cool. I had also decided, so gonna go a little deep for a moment. I've been trying to put myself out there more as a person, as an actor, as an artist, just trying to put myself out there more because I still tend to mute myself, to make myself small sometimes, and I'm actively working on that. And so when I would see the Star Trek actors at conventions in the past, I wouldn't go up and speak to them. I would always say, "Oh, I'm going to work with them one day, and this and that, and that's how I want them to meet me for the first time," and blah blah blah. And I wouldn't say anything. And I think there was a little bit of fear in there of just going up and saying hi. And this time around, I went up to the actors. Like I didn't get any pictures or autographs. Also, like I couldn't afford it. I don't have that kind of cash. But I went up and I started speaking to mostly I think the Discovery actors because they were on the floor that day. And I went up and spoke to one of them. And I said, "Yeah, I'm a big fan and this and that. I really hope I get to work with you one day." And then I started talking about the web series a little bit. And I was like, "Oh, maybe that's what I'm doing. Maybe I'm talking about the web series and I'm telling them how much this means to me and how much they've influenced this and how much what they're a part of it has influenced this. And that's what I'm doing." And so I kind of just started doing that on the floor for like 10 or 15 minutes. And more I did it. I got comfortable. Um, they were very gracious and very kind. And one of the best parts of that was my friend Rhea came up and she was like, "Hey, what do what's up? What's going on?" She's a fellow Trekkie, obviously a fellow Star Trek fan. And I said, "Oh, like, well, I'm kind of just going around talking to some of the actors, but I'm also telling them about the show." And she's like, "Oh, I'll go with you. I've got like 20 minutes. Let's go." And so she walked around with me while I was doing this. And I came up to Anthony Rapp and I was really nervous. And I was shaking a little bit and I was talking to him about it. And so Rhea was literally on the side like this saying, "Well, it won things. Tell him this. Stop being so nervous. Stop being so humble. Give him a car." Like she was like,
Yes.
as like,
Wing woman.
as that person that's just in your corner cheering you on, and there was something that was so beautiful just about that moment. That's one of like the highlights so far being able to
It's
get
funny.
there.
Great story.
It's funny that you say that because Mike and I definitely went to a convention in April. We went to the DNI Con in Philadelphia, which is definitely a very queer themed crowd. And we went with the idea that we were going to pass out stickers and business cards. It literally, like, we were such like textbook introverts as soon as we got there. And then it was literally by day 3, we were like giving out our stickers.
Finally.
So totally, I totally relate to that. Sometimes you have to force yourself to.
You gotta push yourself to to get out there, and again, it's not just about like trying to get a show out there. It's really you advocating for yourself, right? Advocating for yourself and being proud of the work that you have done, and like, no, I am talented. No, I have done this, and I'm really proud of this, and I want to share it with somebody. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. You talk about panels versus interacting with fans. I think we had a little bit of that same experience where where there was a wealth of actors from the show there, and I mean, it sounds like a crazy sort of experience for an adult, but you have that moment where you realize that Terry Farrell is super lovely and could not be more beautiful in person, but also is not Jadzia. Jadzia is fictional.
Right.
Jadzia is made up. She isn't, like an actor who did a job beautifully, but she is an actor. She was just someone going to work the way that we go to work every day. And that, yes, it's super cool to get to meet these actors, but when it comes down to it, like, the fans are kind of just as cool to meet because of the crazy diversity, the idic of it all, the infinite diversity of all of these people that you meet at a Star Trek convention.
It's a beautiful thing. There's a sense of a family, and it's not culty, and it is not culty. It is genuinely. It is
sometimes some of them are, okay. Let's
keep it 100.
Yeah, there of anything. There is a small percentage of folks. It's a little too serious, buddy.
Yeah,
it's okay.
The Klingons.
They are a cult. Listen, you all talk about going and folks in there, captains with their pips, and it's like, calm down, sir. Fictional show. You didn't earn those pips. You bought them on Amazon. That came from buymyuniform.com. It's okay.
Poster Mart, okay.
Right.
Well, that's where mine came from.
That's the one.
But all right, so I want to transition into episode 2 of your show, which is kind of spicy for my delicate sensibility.
Oh yeah, it is.
But all right, so you're going into like an issue that is like so awkward
prevalent,
but fascinating of racial dynamics and sexual attraction, and being attracted to someone of a different ethnicity, or that in a way that is sort of becomes your norm, and like, are you fetishizing? Are you fetishized? And how do you navigate? Clearly, the gentleman that you are hooking up with
should have been punched in the back of his head. Go ahead.
Yes,
I'm sorry,
navigating it poorly. Should have been punched in the back of his head. Yes. Listen, he's saying the lines that you wrote for him. He's He's just an actor, right? We're all playing pretend. But yeah, no, I mean, I found it fascinating, and I want to hear your thoughts on that and kind of like where that all came from. And
well, first I want to shout out to my friend Joel Joffrey, who played that character and played it well. And I told him about what I wanted to do, and I said, okay, well, this is what I'm doing. I didn't tell him specifically the lines or anything like that, but then I sent him the script, and then he read the lines. He's like, oh, the N-word. I was like, I know. He's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, there is a reason for it. He's like, I'm only doing this if you are 100% behind it. I said, I am. I absolutely am. And bless his heart, and I love him so very much. So I'm so sorry. What was your question? I was talking about Joey.
I had a pretty non-specific question. I was just sort of like interested in sort of like, where that came from in your life. And
so I mean, there have been a few experiences, being being black, hooking up, being out at gay clubs, gay bars. And you hear certain things, and there was one guy that I was seeing. We weren't really dating, we were just hanging out. It wasn't really getting romantic just yet, but he wanted to get down, he wanted to hook up at one point. And he had said, I want someone black on my resume. That's what he had said to me. And
you're like,
kind of,
how
okay.
how did those words come out of someone's mouth? Like, is that like,
Right.
I'm so
the audacity of it all.
like, how
I'm
many
looking to
drinks
check
have
a
you had at that
box.
point? Like, how, like, or is that just like just casual honesty?
I mean, I didn't entertain it. We were texting, so I mean, he texted it, but it was just, I still didn't quite process it yet. It was still like, it wasn't fully forming in my mind of what was going on. There was another situation where I was at a gay bar, and I mean, so like, long story short, we were doing like an underwear modeling show for a benefit, and she was in a Speedo. Anyway, so like,
It's always for a benefit.
it's for a benefit. It's for the cause.
It's
nudity for the cause.
For the cause.
For the cause.
We have those
Great
here
episode.
in New York, and I always, it's
like Broadway Bears.
for sure.
But the photographer for the event had said to me, "Oh, you're so exotic." And I mean, yet again, there's that's like, while people don't, I think that's one of the, if I can say this, the lesser aggressive.
Oh, it's the microaggression of it all.
It's a
yes, but it's still, it's still rooted in you being this, I don't know, like, you found me on a safari, climbing a tree. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
it's like a double take one where you're like, oh.
Exactly, right? And I think the height of it was so I remember I was talking to someone, and they said, yeah, I was watching porn, and it was like, it was a black guy and a white guy, and they're like, they're doing the do, and so the black guy's about to have an orgasm, and so the white guy says to him, give me that N-word load. And so my friend was like, I was so uncomfortable, I shut it off, like, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And then I think that's one of the moments where I was like, oh, it really is fetishism. It's everywhere. It's definitely in the queer community. I mean, Grindr, I've used Grindr, but when you can filter out what ethnicity you want,
right?
When there's an ethnicity filter, what are we doing?
I actually did not know that.
It says, like, I don't need a filter.
Says
everyone is welcome.
It says this married gay who's forced to find his sluttery without the good of an app. I'm like, I'm not aware.
But they talked about, I think they talked about getting rid of it during after George Floyd happened. I think they talked about getting rid of their filter. I don't know if that really happened or not, but and there's also, I don't know why I'm talking about porn so much, but I remember watching porn, and there's like always, that little advertisement that pops up, like, hey, check out this, out this. And it was a scenario, like, there's like the scenario porn that's out there. Also, not here to kink shame, like, I'm not trying to yunk anyone's yum, but sometimes some stuff is like, and so there was the scenario of this black guy getting gangbanged by a bunch of white police officers. And I just said, okay, there's a whole conversation, there's a whole dialogue that needs to be had, that has to be discussed here. And when you also have friends that say, oh, I'm not really attracted to black women, or you're the most attractive black man that I've ever met. I'm not normally attracted to black men, but you're, when you hear things like that, there's a dialogue that needs to be had. There are things that are being unspoken, and I think we often a lot of us, I think, in the queer community try to explain it away, or just
Mm-hmm.
explain it away as, oh, I've just never thought about it, or oh, it's just the way that it is, or you're
Just how
making
I
too
grew
much of it.
up, and and it's hard in the time to have the conversation. Like what's
No,
so
go on,
interesting, no,
go on.
it's so interesting, like when those things happen, like when microaggressions happen, or when like blatant racism sort of happens. In the moment, you're like, what? It's a mind fuck. You're like,
You've got to register it.
what just happened? Who
Yeah.
just said what? And then sometimes your brain is not quick enough to connect to the fact that you want to say or do or respond to the thing the
Yes.
way that you should.
Yep.
And then when you don't, 30 minutes, you're like, that son of a
Yeah.
so and so did and if you're with people who are not of the same ilk, and they're like, well, what happened? What's going on? I didn't realize. And it's
Mm.
oh, it's
Yeah.
so much. It's
It's
so much. And
it's so much.
I feel it's one of those things where, like, when you put that on there, it reminded me of the scene in A Strange Loop, like just slightly, where
Oh, oh,
he go that
oh.
whole show, ugh, so uncomfortable for me. Um he, is going for the hookup, and of course the gentleman says the thing that you should not be
Yeah.
saying, because like,
Yeah.
and that is the fetish. It's like, yes, that's the only why, like, race is a concept, is a construct, yada yada yada.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like, a person is a person is a person, and just because someone is like, oh, you grew up in Idaho or Iowa and it was only corn-fed white
Right.
boys on the farm, and now you're in New York and you're like, ooh, who's exotic? No, like, do they have features that you find attractive? Okay, great, move on. Like,
Yeah.
it's not, oh,
Mm.
oh, you're a beautiful black. No, you're just a beautiful man, period,
Yeah.
point blank, who happens to be black.
Yeah.
Let's move on. There's certain things you don't say. There's certain that, we're not going to be touching hair. We're not going to be asking why I have a bonnet on. Like, let's just, what are we doing? You're never going to say the N word because I'm going to punch you in your throat. Like,
Right.
it's simple.
It's simple.
It's
It's
simple.
simple, and um it's really, again, it really is, it's a dialogue that we've got to start having in the queer community. And I think on the other end too, I think that sometimes, again, like Michael Eddington said, we've been assimilated and we don't even know it. And I think
Right.
sometimes we shame each other after it happens, saying, well, you just need to stop chasing whiteness, or stop chasing this. And it's like, maybe on one hand, that could very well be happening, which is obviously something that I address in the third episode,
Mm.
but it still happened and it's not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we can't just shame the person for pursuing this thing. It's still wrong. It's not normal for them to do that. That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And yeah, and like I said, then there's on the other end of, I experienced that, and I became very aware of that, like later on down the road, and friends would say something, oh, like, there go that white boy again, da da da. I was like, what are you talking about? I don't understand. And it hit home for me finally. I did a short film, like before the pandemic. I did a short film, and these two characters have a kiss. It's two white characters that have a kiss. And then my character, who's like the main supporting character, and the main character share a kiss. The main character was white. And we share a kiss at the very end of the short film. In the promotional pictures for the film festival that it made it into, they shared the picture of the two white characters kissing. Not me and the white character kissing, but the two white characters kissing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing that and just feeling, oh, and again, not letting the ego get in the way, but I was thinking, but my character's the more prominent character, and I share a kiss with the lead character, but that picture why wasn't that picture shown?
Oh, fascinating. Yeah.
And and that's when it really started to sink in. I was like, oh, okay, that's what this is. And then I started thinking about, again, all love to queer shows that have pioneered for more queer shows to be made. Like, all love to Queer as Folk, but that cast was all salt, no pepper.
No pepper. I mean, we had that's why we had to have our own show.
Right. And we had
all
Noah's
pepper
Ark.
and a little Noah's Ark. But see, we said yes, black, but hey, guess little Spanish. We had little sazon. Like again, like it's not 50 Shades of chicken. It is literally
Oh my God.
boiled and boiled again.
and it's like, I mean, because I think Noah's Ark was like one of the anchor shows for
Yes.
now was it
Was
now
it
or next or
one
Logo?
of Logo?
Logo.
Yes.
Like, I don't think
Logo.
Logo's around anymore.
Oh, Logo.
Which,
So
like,
good.
all love to Logo and all love to Noah's Ark, but when I looked at the production quality and the kind of shots that Queer as Folk had and the budget that they had, and when you compare it to Noah's
because it was on
Ark,
Showtime, because they had that cable money.
right? You can look at the difference. You can see the difference in the quality. And again, that's all not knocking Noah's Ark at all. I just can see where the pennies were, like where the resources were really put in, and it's not fair. It's unequal. But I say that it's a discussion that we've got to have. And for my personal experiences, that's what I put into that. Now, I mean, like, that episode is only like 7 minutes long, because I tried to keep the format short, because I'm like, it's going to be on YouTube. I can only do this in a short amount of time. I also don't have the money to pay the DP for like an extra, like an extra week.
But you said all that needed to be said within the time allotted. Like it was succinct, and I think gave enough breath, like in certain moments where you're like, those moments where you're thinking, those shots where it's like, oh, you can see what's happening, and then it hit in the right way, the way that you wanted it to. It's interesting when you talk about the Borg and being assimilated. It's one of those things where it's like you could be assimilated culturally, but then also you're self-assimilating. I don't mean like self-assimilating, but like you've taken all this in, so now are you seeing what you are seeing, or are you seeing what you've been told to see? It's like the Matrix, like the red and the blue pill. Like, do you want to see the reality of where we are, or do you want to continue to live in this sort of fog of your own design, or the Matrix's own design, as it were?
Well, and I gotta say, watching that second episode, it tapped into things that, in all honesty, made me uncomfortable. I mean, obviously, especially when the N-word came out, because these are questions that, like, as someone whose sex life, I hook up with Black guys, Asian guys, and I am constantly in those moments. I have that question of sort of that caution of like, am I fetishizing this person? Is that what it is? Like, because I'm asking that question, I realize probably I'm not, because I'm taking the time to be like, am I? But that is the fear. That's the fear, because you see it happening, and you're like, how do I, like, I'm like, it makes you careful, and you're seeing that sort of kind of a worst case scenario, as I would imagine it played out. It gave me that, like, oh, it's that, which, like, poses all these questions that I don't know the answer, and I don't know when is it fetishization and when is it like genuine.
When that's what you're only going for. So just like the filter to filter out, the fact that you're filtering for, like I could see if you only exclusively said, guess what? You can only be 6'5", 220, football, and you gotta be Black with locks. So
like
that's
too
specific.
But here's the thing is that, like, we all find ourselves in these, like, with weird sexual specificity, and that you're like, you can, I mean, the terrible phrase that people say, the heart wants what the heart wants. Like, you're and it is not that case because I have a, I have a diverse sexual life. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But like,
a diverse
but
heart.
like, but when that becomes the only thing that turns you on, like what? It's a hard question because what control as a human do you have over who or what you're attracted to? Like, yeah, you can control how you treat those humans or the respect that you give the people that you're attracted to, but when it is the only thing that you go for and that is who, like, what do you do? Like, how do you
It's
when that's your
well,
sexuality, like what how do you
I think that's
what
like
do you do?
that's the internal work, right? I think that's
Mhm.
just, and I think it's kind of different for everybody how you handle it, how you tackle it, but I think that's the internal work. And when you, even if you're not doing it but you're asking yourself those questions, I think that's already a step in the right direction of doing some work. I'm not, I don't think that anyone needs to like punish themselves and persecute themselves for
Mm,
certain things. If you're doing the work and if you're asking questions, that that means that you're curious, right? That means that you don't have all the
Mm.
answers. That means that you don't want to be purposefully um ignorant. I don't know if that's the right
It
phrasing to
is.
say.
It is.
Mhm.
But that means that you don't want to live in that space, and you're seeking more knowledge and you're seeking more understanding. And I mean, taking it to episode 3, where Matt realizes that all these men that he's pursued have been white men. And what is the root of that? And he's kind of just starting that journey of, okay, so when did this start? What was this? And um the character of Tia, played by my friend Brandy, who owned it, and I love her.
Mm-hmm.
But the character of Tia, she says, this is really about how you see yourself and what you see as desirable. And so, for Matt specifically, if you constantly see these um, Eurocentric standards of beauty, especially in the queer community and in queer media, you start to think that that's the standard, and that's what I need to look like, or that's what I need to aspire to obtain in my dating life. And if I don't have that, then I'm not beautiful
Mhm.
myself. I'm not work,
Yeah.
so
well, and
it's
there's that fucked up thing that we as gay men tend to struggle with, where we're like, where we look at our own sexual attraction, and you have to, like, case by case. I literally have to do this where I'm like, do I want to fuck that guy or do I want to be that
be
guy?
that person.
And that is,
Sure.
That's interesting.
have you
It's
never thought of that, Law? Did
Um,
I just open your eyes?
well, no. Well, I've never thought of that because I've never been attracted to people who relatively look like me. Like
Never had a
I like
doppelganger crush?
no, actually no, honestly, like I think I used the word lesbian in my early coming out because it's the only word that I knew. Like, when you know language, you can use it more readily for yourself.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
like, you know, okay, I'm gonna come out as bi because I don't want to be like, because I dated guys in high school, like
Right,
cis
right.
het men in high school, because that's what you do. You, as a woman, you learn, you're like, you grow up, you find a man, you date him,
Mm,
you engage him, you
mhm,
marry him, you
mhm.
have babies, you move on.
Mhm.
And that's your life. And then realizing, oh, not necessarily just attracted to that. Okay, then I'm bi because I like women. And it's like, no more god bi cis guys. Oh, I'm a lesbian. And then, learning the word queer, be like, no, I'm not a lesbian because I'm not a woman who's exclusively attracted to women. I am a
Mhm.
a woman who's attracted to people,
Mhm.
usually not of the cis het variety, but like everybody else. So it's like queer, me. That's my,
Yeah.
that's my wheelhouse to play. And so, no, I've never looked at them like, oh, do I want to fuck you or do I want to be you? Because A, no one that I wanted to fuck me. Two, no one that I saw that I really want to look like. Because I was like, why do I want that body? You don't have a butt. You like no,
Truth. Truth.
you don't. Like, like once I started to like love like the package that I was in, I was like, that whole idea of like, oh, I'm aspiring to be that, went out the window. But I can understand that from a man's perspective because like there are standards, beauty standards on both sides, like queer men and
Oh,
straight men. Like
absolutely.
Yeah.
y'all need to have like muscles and big and tall. You can't be too thin. You can't be too short. You know, I don't understand where anybody thinks 12 inches of a dick is going, but whatever. That's your
What
business. You
where
can
where's that gonna go? Where
because someone
where's
explained it like how much room you have in your mouth, and then let's
That's
be
true.
clear, most people gag reflex.
like,
So
and again, not to kink
You
shame,
got to
like
train for it.
if you can put all 12 in,
what else?
front, aft,
Any
ear, if you can
orifice,
fit
Aft.
it in there,
amazing.
Like you said, aft.
Or an aft.
you
Sorry.
know,
It's perfection. Like,
more
no,
power
I
to
get
you
it.
if you can. But,
Yeah,
not everybody can,
not everybody can take all that. No,
yeah.
but it's interesting. But Damon, when you said like, how do you know if you are doing the thing that is bad versus doing the thing that is just who you like? I liken it to when in neighborhoods, like if there's the Eminem of it all. I know it's such follow me. My brain's like Eminem literally
We
grew
going.
up on like 8 Mile Detroit. So
Not the candy. I'm on board.
He's
Took me a
surrounded
minute.
mostly by
Mike
like
had a COVID
most
chai yesterday.
yeah, most of his friends are he's like, what's happening? Most of his friends are, black, brown. So who is he going to school with? Who is he seeing? That's what's going to inform who he is
Mhm.
attracted to.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Sure.
what's his face? That comedian who like he grew up in like Gary Clark, Gary somebody, he's divorced now, but anyway, like where he grew up, he like grew up around he was like the only white boy in this entire black
Sure.
neighborhood.
Yes.
So
Sure.
yes, he grew up with his mama who was white, but it's like it's not an Oedipus complex. He's like, these are the women that I'm growing up with, the
That's
girls that I find attractive. And so I'm not fetishizing. It's literally
is just what you
what I grew up with. Like, yeah, I saw
yeah.
TV, but
Sure.
these women around me, right? Like that's the
I think
difference.
that's a different, yeah, that's a different thing. And that's like, is that anthropology? Is that the right word or is it something else?
Sociology, I don't
I
know.
don't
It's
know.
it
Let's go
like
with
there's like
We don't have a
the
fact
block you
checkers. Just say what it is, and no one will know.
and
You're
we'll
right.
go with it.
it's like it's that like the block you grew up on, the
Yeah,
neighborhood, like all
yeah.
those different things
Hmm.
affect your affect how you grow up, your upbringing. So just to
Right.
emphasize your point, absolutely.
I think nowadays, well, I say nowadays, is in the last 20 years, we have such readily accessibility to porn, that how do I want to say this? So you get to a certain point, where you're watching the same kind of porn over and over, you know what I mean? Whether it's, I don't know, twinks or whatever that or blonde women, I don't know, whatever. Um, and you're like, that's what does it for me. So I like, it's like your go-to. And does that then somehow shape your views? And um, I think people get bored with it and then look for something else and make something a little bit more fetishy and a little bit more different. And I mean, they make a joke on Family Guy about how the only thing that Peter can get off to is like this very specific busty Latinos sitting on cakes or whatever. You know what I mean? He's like, yeah, that's what it takes nowadays. You know what I mean? So I just wonder if that leads people down a path where they end up
Mm.
fetishizing someone because this is what gets them off online now, and it's porn where someone says the N-word, so that then they seek that out in real life. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's this disconnect. Um, Speaking of it being sort of a Borg like, it's I don't exactly know where I'm going. COVID
But
shot.
yeah, the porn that we consume has got to. I mean, that yes, we have to be influenced by all of this crazy shit that we're consuming. No
Yeah.
question.
Right.
But again, I think it really is, the very fact that you're asking the question is, I think that's the most important thing, the first step to doing the work, right? It's just asking the question and continuing to be curious. And again, not to the point that you're punishing yourself.
Right.
but just really just asking the question. And if you notice that something is something's off, you notice that something is, this might be unhealthy. And I mean, I've been in therapy now for since the pandemic. I think that's when a lot of people started, right? But with therapy, you do that internal work, and you find stuff. You
Yeah.
find stuff internally that started with you, started in your upbringing, and you can see how it plays out. So I think it really, not to be cliche about it, it starts with you, and doing the work and asking the question.
Well, and I think
Absolutely.
art can also serve that function, which is to say that you provoked me to ask that question watching that. I said, "Ooh, I don't do that, do I?" Like it created
Right.
that moment, and I think that's I think that's powerful, that you can create something that makes people a little uncomfortable and question themselves. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Thank you.
mean,
That was
no, go
no,
ahead.
go ahead.
I was gonna say, truth be
Jinx.
told, yeah, double jinx. Truth be told, when the episode was going where I knew it was going to go to, I was like, and I'm not
Mm.
ready for that at the moment. Like I
Mm.
I saw it. It
Yeah.
was like I was like, once you started looking around the room, and then once we got into the things, and I was
Yeah.
like, I even paused it before the sex even happened. Like you were just sitting on the couch. I was like, nope, I'm not prepared because I know where
Mm.
this is going.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, I mean, I'm going, okay. And then I finished, I was like, "Ugh." It went there, and I was like, "Ugh," because gross. But
Yeah.
of course, that's what art provokes something. And like I feel like if it wasn't cathartic for you to create this, I hope that like you can reflect and be like, oh, getting it out of you, like, and actually saying something. You, I just, it was great, but I just was like, ugh. I just knew. I knew, and I didn't want it to. I wanted to be so
You
nice.
wanted to go
No, he
nice.
Hey, you wanted it
I
to work
Right.
out.
With a happy ending.
But
Well,
I gotta say, the fact that you intercut it with the fucking battle scene, that
Oh,
trademark Star
yes.
Trek choreograph. What do we call that? The choreographed lurching when the ship
The
yeah,
moves.
shakes.
the
shake.
Like,
we're
Right,
all
right.
we're all
It's like a
yeah.
number 4.
That
okay,
that
so
came
fun.
from, so also, like, shout out to my my DP. The DP for the first episode was Franck, Franck Gombert, who's back in France now. But he did the first one, and then my friend Garrett Stotko was the DP for 2 and 3, and we just had a lot of fun doing the shake, camera shake bits. The scenario itself of the ship under attack, like on the bridge. I share the scripts with the actors, and Emerson, who's Emerson that's his name in real life too. Emerson's been my friend since I was in high school. We're both actors, we're both writers. So I'll share my scripts with him, and he'll be like, okay, that's interesting. Have you thought about this? And Emerson is he's a nut. He's hilarious. And so when I brought up the sex scene, Emerson was like, well, what if you're like firing photon torpedoes and blah blah blah. I was like, that's hilarious. And so like that
So
that
good.
made it, that made it in.
Great. It's great.
Now there's a line in there, ram your enterprise into my scimitar. That came from someone that I was having heated relations with, and he was also a Star Trek fan, and he texted me that one day. This was
That's amazing.
10 years ago, and I was like, that is so funny. I don't know where that's gonna go one day,
But it will.
it will. It's gonna go somewhere 10 years down the road. It made
That's
it
amazing.
into.
I love it.
Is there going to be an episode 4? Is
I know. I
the
was like,
story
is there more
complete?
coming?
There's definitely more coming. I'm writing episode 4 right now. The plan is to write 4, 5, and 6. To write another set of 3, but I'm definitely writing it right now. I mean, I guess I can kind of give some stuff away, but it's based
Exclusive.
around it is based around a drag show. And there is a baddie, if you will, a villain for the next set of 3 based off of Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Nice.
Who I realized that I just I have no love for at all. And I was so angry. I got more and more angry when I would just watch her on the news. And out of nowhere, I was like, oh, she's a villain. She's the villain for the next season of the show. She's the bad guy. So there is a character based on her that is kind of going after the boulevard, going after the queer bars and trying to get them shut down one by one. And so we there's a drag show that's happening, and long story short, we have moments where, you know, Matt is watching things happen and he's processing the drag show and the performers like they're Klingons in a tournament. You know, you've got these drag queens that are coming from these different houses to compete, and he sees them as, you know, Klingons coming from different houses to battle it out.
That's amazing.
And you know, the Borg do make a return because they are a continuing theme of racism. So the Borg do continue. We'll continue to see that as well. But that's more or less what's happening right now.
Well, I do want to go on record and say that if in your casting process you need a Janeway queen, we are your source. We have a lead on Janeway queens. We can send any number of them your way. That is our niche.
Of
different
any,
parts of the world,
different racial backgrounds. Like, we've got you covered.
I mean, I already know that it's going to be, just because of the fact that it is a drag focused episode. I know it's going to be a bigger episode. I know there's going to have to be a GoFundMe, all that stuff. Like, you know, if I had Paramount money, maybe speaking positively, when I had Paramount money, I would.
There we go.
I would love to have these Star Trek characters pop up as regular people in Matt's life, and then have moments where, you know, he's got that Star Trek moment, and you've got, I don't know, Jerry Ryan playing, I don't know, some
Jerry, if you're listening, this is your gig.
Jerry, if you're listening, you know, or, you know, Matt having some sort of scenario in his life where he's questioning everything, and John Delancey pops up as Q for whatever reason, if it's in a dream that Matt's having. I would love for these actors to make cameos of themselves in Matt's life in that way, like they, you know, like it is right now on the show. If Paramount was like, oh well, we can't do that, you know, it's got to be in universe, I'm like, okay, well, what does Benny Russell look like in the 21st century? Maybe Benny Russell is a queer black nerd trying to process the world, trying to process life. So maybe he sees Donald Trump like the Borg. Maybe he sees racism like the Borg. If he gets pulled over by the police, you know, is that a Borg cube in his back mirror?
Now, listener, if you're not catching the reference, Benny Russell is Far Beyond the Stars.
Oh, yes.
Our Ben Sisko counterpart from that. Go watch it if you don't know that episode. Stop right now and go watch it.
Yeah, go watch it. But it's like, you know, Benny Russell is watching, you know, he's seeing these alternate Deep Space Nine characters pop up in his real life, and then he's got to rub his eyes and go, oh no, wait, it's just you. What does that look like in the 21st century? What does that look like today? That would be that's my pitch. That's my show pitch.
Love it.
I love it.
Love a pitch.
Make
Can't
it.
wait. Yep.
I feel like it's time for us to transition into. No, Mike has one more thing.
No, you're right. I was about to. We are on the same page.
Rapid fire. But wait, is Lanita doing it tonight? Usually Mike does it.
Yeah, Mike, go ahead. Look, listen, if the flu COVID mix has worn away and Mike Jones is ready to rapid fire.
Yeah, there's some
away,
questions that we
Captain
tend to ask every guest.
Mhm.
So you know, we get some fun answers out of them. So here we go. If you could have dinner with 3 characters, not the actors, the characters, who would they be and why?
Oh, okay. It would probably, one would be Dax, because there's so much wisdom and there is so much knowledge. And
What
she
Dax?
just has Jadzia.
Okay, all right, sorry.
And you know, she just has a lot of
It's a valid question.
It's a very
Could be Ezri.
it is a valid question.
And she just has so much fun doing it that I'm like, yeah, I gotta know. God, probably Mariner as well. Mariner is also just crazy and unhinged, and
She's the perfect amount of
That'd be a
chaos.
fun dinner.
She
Can
might
you
land you in
imagine
the brig, but yeah.
yeah, because like, can you imagine going to West Hollywood with Mariner? Like,
Yes.
the
Yes.
the
Sheer joy.
the chaos and the joy. Oh gosh, and a third one. Oh, a third. Who would it be? I mean, these answers are going to change later on, but this is just who's in
Of
my
course.
head right now.
In the moment.
It would probably be, maybe it would be Captain Burnham.
Oh yeah.
All women you've chosen.
I have.
Yeah.
I guess I have. I just have.
Captain
It would probably be Captain Burnham. I think that journey from I don't even like just saying mutineer because I just don't like putting her as like I just don't like calling her criminal. And I have a thing with just like labeling a black woman as a criminal, and I don't like it. Having her go from that journey of where she was to where she is now, being a captain, really, especially in season 5, really going deep and really being forced to be very, very honest with herself. I don't know. There's something about that I'm like, okay, so how did you get there? What happened? You know, there have been moments where I've been watching that show, like, especially like, what was it? Season 4. It's like the mid season finale where Book takes off to go use the weapon on the DMA. And you know, she's just standing there in the shuttle bay, and I was mad for her. I just wanted to come up like with my tea, like, well, girl, what you gonna do, girl? What you gonna do? What you want me to do? What you gonna do?
Where are we
I don't
going?
know.
What
Miss
are we doing?
Burnham, what we gonna do, Miss Burnham? We ride at dawn. What you want to do? Like
that would be an interesting dinner because I think that Mariner would fangirl over both of them.
Correct.
And Dax might know Michael Burnham.
Oh,
like, you know what I
right?
mean?
Totally possible. Totally possible.
Right.
She totally might know.
I haven't thought of that.
So
yeah.
Okay, Mike
yeah,
Jones.
great choice.
Like, yeah.
What is your go-to holodeck program?
Uh-oh.
Rice of
It's porn. It's porn.
It's porn.
I didn't even say
The holodeck is for
Next
porn.
question. It's porn.
I mean, there is that. I would definitely clean up after myself, especially seeing like what, you know, Beckett and
Boimler
have to do. I'm like, okay, I can't do that. I can't make people clean up the messes. God, what would I don't know. That's a great question. My holodeck program. What would my go-to holodeck program be? I don't know. I mean, maybe some sort of superhero scenario, because I've always wanted to be a superhero. I've always wanted to fly.
Oh yeah.
Why not?
That's great fantasy.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, take me to Wakanda. I don't know. Like, let me be Spider-Man. Let me be part of the part of the X-Men. Oh. Yeah.
So we got X-Men and Star Trek
Mutant
colliding.
powers.
Okay.
If you lived in the 24th century, what would your life be like? Would you join Starfleet
in the 24th century?
In the 24th, sorry, I slurred my words.
24th century. What would I be doing? I'm trying not to say this just because I want to be in Starfleet, but
You'll be in Starfleet.
I would be. I can't see it any other way. Realistically, just because of my personality, I could see myself being a ship's counselor. But there's also that part of me that just wants to be the captain.
Nice. Not security.
Not security. I mean, and this is like, yeah, this is a thing. I mean, not to be a negative, here, but from being security and working in places that are very upscale and seeing the majority of people that are in security, and not knocking security as a profession, because it is an important profession to keeping people safe, but to see just the majority of just it being people of color in security, and then seeing who works in the boardroom for that establishment, and again seeing it be all Eurocentric for the most part, and then to, as much as I love Star Trek, and obviously I love Star Trek, but I notice when it is yet again a black person, a black man, bigger built, he's got darker skin because we villainize darker skin, and he's wearing a security uniform. It still happens. I've seen it in the later Treks. It still happens, and I still see it. That's not to say that obviously people of color aren't shown. Like, we got Captain Brennan, we got this, but when I see security people, I see the narrative still being pushed.
Right.
That's my side rant.
Hollywood casting.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, rapid fire.
Okay.
Crusher or Pulaski?
Crusher.
Would you take Worf's Klingon Tai Chi class or do leotard yoga with Beverly, Indiana?
Oh, I want to take the Tai Chi class.
Tea Earl Grey hot or coffee black?
Probably coffee. Coffee is going to be iced, though.
Oh, yeah.
You are homosexual after all.
I am.
Yes.
I am a homosexual after all.
We walk faster, iced. We drink our coffee cold.
Yes.
Sure.
And with oat milk.
And with oat milk.
Well, we actually learned a little something about oat milk from Lenita before you got on, but we'll save that for that.
What? Okay.
That brown sugar shaken oatmeal espresso needs about 90 minutes, and then boop, time to go.
Oh yeah, very much.
It's regular.
It's certainly the oat milk that does.
You don't need to douche anymore. Just have that drink.
Brown sugar shaken oat milk espresso. If you had a replicator sitting next to you, is that what you would order, or what would you order from your replicator?
oh my gosh. Let's see. I love Italian food, so it'd probably be pasta. I love peach cobbler.
You're
now, but is that
language.
replicator peach cobbler gonna be good?
No,
yes, the replicated food is good.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, we do have to think about where it's coming from, because they bring it up in like season 3 where like it comes from.
Oh, we don't talk about this. I know what you're gonna say. We don't talk about this.
Right. We talk about the before.
Far be it from me to ever silence an honored guest on our podcast,
but in this moment, we're not
we
gonna
know
talk about
this. We know this.
I just saw. I can't remember what her name was, but I just saw her bite into that apple, and I said I'd do this. I would put it down too. I would put it down too.
Okay, who is your Star Trek bartender, Guinan or Quark?
Oh, I mean, listen, if I'm gonna be with Guinan, I'm gonna be red for filth, like every day.
Yes.
Every day I will be red for filth.
My God, the Guinan hat in your show was like killing me.
I was like, that was perfect. I was like,
I made that hat.
You made it.
I made that hat.
So good.
Well done.
I was like, I can't find it anywhere online. I made that hat. I made that hat. And God bless my friend Brandy for putting it on.
She was
ooh, okay, so Guinan or Quark? What would I get from Quark? I mean, I have a lot of fun at that bar.
You can play Dabo.
I could play Dabo.
Talk to Morn.
Tongo. You could play
darts.
Tongo.
I could talk to Morn.
Well, the guy never shuts up.
He never shuts up. He's always got something to say. You know what? Quark's bar. I'd be at Quark's.
Quark's bar, where everybody knows.
I would be at Quark's, and I don't know. Like Morn would be telling me about all of his adventures.
Okay, this one's a hot button issue for our pod.
Yeah.
Are you team Tasha or team Armis?
Like as in terms, like in what way?
Like, do you Basically, do you like Tasha Yar, or are you glad Arbus the oil slick killed her?
You know what, Tasha, because I'm obsessed with Yesterday's Enterprise. I talk about this all
Yes.
time. I am obsessed with that episode. I know it was done well, but I really think that because I really like Star Wars Rogue One. I thought that was a great story, and it was like a great, somewhat tragic story. I think that Star Trek's answer to Rogue One is telling a before leading up to story of the Enterprise C and that crew.
Oh yeah.
I think that would be a beautiful story of them deciding to just go out in a blaze of glory. I would love to see what that's like. And I think that I fell in love with that Tasha Yar. So
that Tasha.
I think I'm Team Tasha.
That is the wrong answer.
Well, but I think kind of like season one Tasha is not the Tasha that
I know, but you know that has
I
to,
know.
I can't help it. It's just always going to be. I respect your answer and your opinion.
Thank you. Wait, why are you team? You're Team Armis? Why?
All day long. Suck her down into the pits of goo. Goodbye.
They both have Armis action figures.
Move along home.
Yes, thank you, Damien. Okay, who's your captain?
Oh, my captain is Cisco.
Excellent. As I said that, I was like, that could have been a line in your in the sex scene. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there were some lines that were like that my friend Joey thought of that we didn't put in that we wanted to. We didn't get to, like, I want to ride your captain's log. Let me see your Deep Space Nine.
Oh my god.
Didn't make it in, but
writes itself.
There's always the sequel. What's your favorite alien species?
My favorite alien, I think it's Klingons. I love the joy and the embracing of life, and just, I don't know, they're so big.
I also love that you have summed them up in a quality that our most prominent Klingon does not have.
That's true.
Which is actually like something that we talk about a lot, about somehow these like alien species tend to be like one thing only, and that is like a real complexity to the Klingons, that the one that we love the most, I don't want to speak for you, but the one that I love the most, Worf, obviously, is not that way.
Thoroughly.
He's not, but there's, like, I don't know, in the culture there's just this joy, and everything is about joy. To be in battle is a joy. The way they talk about things, just the way that they speak is so lusty. Shakespearean.
Yeah, today is a good day to die.
Today is a good day to die. Own the day.
Sing ballads about it.
Huh?
Sing ballads about it. Klingon operas about your escapades.
Right? Like, that is, I don't know. I love that joy, that embracing of life. I love it.
L'chaim. Okay, last question. Damien put this on here. I think specifically for you, because we've never asked this before. Brandon Braga or Ron Moore?
It would be Ron Moore. And that's all love to Brandon Braga. I met Brandon Braga at a Starbucks once.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. I was working at the La Brea Tar Pits on Miracle Mile. This is in California, in Los Angeles, for anyone that doesn't know where that is. But on Miracle Mile, down the block from the La Brea Tar Pits, there's a Starbucks, and I was in there, and he was sitting at a table, and I just walked up to him and I said hi. But Ron Moore, because of Deep Space Nine, because of For All Mankind and getting to be on that show for like 5 seconds. That's another reason why Battlestar Galactica. Yeah, it's Ron Moore. Absolutely. And I want him to come back to Star Trek, even though he's probably done. But I want him to come back.
It would be glorious.
Yeah. And make a Deep Space Nine follow-up series.
Yes.
Season 8.
Or Season 8. or like, I don't know, give us like Trekkies, give us an Avengers style crossover movie. Like we're long overdue.
We may call it Star Trek Legacy.
Oh, at least Lower Decks went back to Deep Space Nine, so that was
right.
fun.
They did,
yeah.
But it's like, I don't know. I just
not
think
enough.
it's not. I'm gonna try to not talk too much, but I think that Deep Space Nine continues to get cherry picked for its stories, and constantly provides the backdrop for new Trek, whether it's the Dominion War for season 3 of Star Trek Picard or season 5 of Star Trek Discovery. The Breen Section 31 has its own movie. We've taken all of these elements from Deep Space Nine, and we've done everything from Deep Space Nine to make these new Trek shows, except give Deep Space Nine itself its own show. And sometimes that's kind of problematic for me. There, I'm done.
Wow.
You're here.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about it that way. They do mine that show for all it's
They
worth.
Really do.
Yeah.
They
You
really
know who
do.
thought about it that way? The Sci-Fi Sisters. Just saying.
Oh, the Sci-Fi Sisters. Yeah, I bet. All right. Where can people find you? Where
All
can
the
we
places.
find your
All of the
your
things.
3-part show, soon to be more, after your fundraiser?
So you can find the show on YouTube at 1701 BLERD. That's the YouTube channel. You can also find it on Instagram at 1701 BLERD. I try to do more like behind the scenes stuff, do more audience interaction and ask questions. I love to draw storyboards. I share my storyboards up there sometimes. Small clips from the show. Anytime that the show makes it into a film festival, it made it into a film festival. A few weeks ago, it screened at the Queer Voices New York City Film Festival last month.
Why did I know that's a month late?
It's I'm trying to put myself out there more. I'm working on this. And that's the first festival that that screened all 3. I've never seen an audience reaction to the second one or the third one, which I'm very curious about. But anytime that the series makes it into a festival, I share it on the Instagram page. The Threads handle is also at 1701 BLERD. The TikTok handle is also at 1701 BLERD. And I also do a podcast called Cinema Z, that's part of the BQN network.
Oh, we know them.
Yeah,
they're great.
Yeah.
Yes.
Check out Cinema
Shout out to
Z.
BQN. Yeah.
Hi, BQN. And me and my friend Mark, we review independent films, and we talk about indie movies, cult classic movies, and we review them. It's a lot of fun. So that's where you can find me. I think that's everywhere that you can find me. Yes.
Awesome. We'll put it
also,
all
my
in
personal
the show
one
notes.
is my personal Instagram is at MLJENN. Slide in the DMs. Say hi.
Thank you, Matt, so much for being here, taking time to join us. This has really been great. We've definitely gone much longer than I planned for us to. So
we're past our bedtime for this now.
No,
there are no sorries. There are no
Thank
sorries.
you.
That's what happens when conversation is good and we're talking about things.
Yes.
The time just flies. So
yeah, we learned this a couple weeks ago. Lanita's rule number 1 is no sorries.
There are no sorries.
That's true. You'll have to come back on the pod and we'll, review an episode together or something.
Please.
Would love that.
Yeah. or we've said this 1,000 times. We are gonna do it soon. Lanita has seen every episode of TOS, every episode of Enterprise, Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, etc., all of it. She has never seen Star Trek 4, 5, or 6 because we're now waiting because it's now so freaking loaded and fraught.
Right.
That we're gonna do some sort of watch event review.
It's gonna be great.
Oh, you're gonna
I'm so excited.
You're gonna have so much fun. All I'm gonna say for Star Trek 6 is Christopher Plummer Klingon.
That's all you gotta say.
That's all I'm gonna say. That's
You
it.
don't even you don't know Shakespeare. I fucked it up already.
You don't know
Shakespeare until you heard it
Shakespeare.
in its original Klingon. Oh god damn it! All right, time to go, guys.
No, I
Time to
know
go.
it. I know it.
Oh my gosh.
You don't know Shakespeare until you heard it in the original Klingon. I think that's
It's something like that.
Yeah.
I quit.
All right. We should wrap up. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to my wonderful co-hosts. If you all have enjoyed today's podcast, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you are listening to this. It does help other folks find us. You can get us on the socials at Hailing Freak Open or at hailingfrequenciesopen.com. And again, thank you so much to our guest. Make sure you check out all of his socials. Again, I don't know why I'm stumbling over this. And
at
with that,
1701 BLERD. He said it enough times. We got it.
did.
We got it. It's out there.
Right.
It's out there.
1701 Blerd. With that, I will say, Hailing Frequencies closed.
No goodbyes. Just good memories. Hailing frequencies closed, sir.